let's get to Georgia. I'm going to look around the conference, and we'll do that for the remainder of this week as well, as far as the key teams that are on Tennessee's schedule and that could stand in their way of a fantastic season. And there is no question that Georgia is that. They were named by CBS Sports as the most likely team to repeat as conference champions. This is like zero surprise to me, Caleb, especially with the Big Ten and Southern California and UCLA combining. So you could have said if Southern California was still in the Pac-12 that it would be.
Oh, no, they're
Southern
going to be in the
Cal.
Pac-12 this year. They're still in the Pac-12 this year.
Okay, so why wouldn't it be Southern Cal in that instance? I thought they had moved that thing up.
Oh, well, USC didn't win the Pac-12 last year. That's why. Utah won it last year.
But wouldn't you think with all they have coming back in another year under Lincoln Riley? So let's make an argument right there.
Well, this list is who's most likely to repeat as conference champions, not who's. So you have to win the conference. Which of the conference champions last year are most likely to repeat this year? Now, I still disagree with the list, funny enough, because I'm with you. I think USC is the most surefire conference champion. But of conference champions most likely to repeat, sorry, Clemson should be ahead of Georgia. Not that Clemson's better than Georgia, but Dave, Clemson winning the ACC or Georgia winning the SEC? Which one's more likely? Come on.
Okay, let me make the argument, but I agree with you. So let's just restart this. Georgia is the most likely to repeat as conference champions. Should it be Clemson or Georgia? Let me make the argument for Georgia, and then I'll let you roll with Clemson, okay? The argument for Georgia is that I think Georgia is the best football program in the nation. Now, you could retort that with they're also the worst driving football program in the nation, and that could undermine them. And that's something that we're going to get into throughout the week and with some Georgia beat writers next week at SEC Media Days. But here's why I think that Georgia is very, very likely to win the championship again, because what sport do teams most often win when they're better? It's football, right? I mean, in basketball, you could have a hot shooter. In baseball or hockey, you could have a great pitcher or a great goalie, respectively, that could take you to a title. But for the most part, would you agree that the better team wins in football? Is that fair?
Yes, and this is really going to show when the playoff expands to 12 teams.
Yeah, I think it actually could be ugly at times. So here's why I like Georgia to repeat as the SEC champion, is because I just think they're significantly better than Alabama. And I think this is somewhat of a transition philosophically this year for Alabama. So I understand your Clemson argument, but ultimately, is Clemson that much better than Florida State or the other suitors to win the SEC? Maybe, but I might be higher on Georgia than you are. I think that Georgia is rounded, assuming they take care of their off-field issues. I would go Georgia with this list as conference repeat champions. You would go Clemson. Would anybody else rival Georgia to you, Caleb?
I think those are the only two, because then you have Michigan and Utah, and I actually don't think either of them is likely to repeat. I think Ohio State and USC both win those conferences. And then you have Tulane in the American, but again, and Kansas State in the Big 12. So, yeah, those are the clear-cut top two. The reason I'm going Clemson is I don't even think Florida State's Clemson's toughest game this year, and they play Florida State. I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. Clemson's toughest game is one of two matchups. Now, you tell me which one. That opener at Duke, that is scary. I don't know if you know, Duke went 9-4 last year. And I'm just saying, Mike Elko is – you talk about a coach that might be the hottest commodity in college football next year if he repeats that at Duke. And – sorry, what were we going to say?
No, go right ahead.
Oh, yeah, so that's – but if they get past that, the only other game for Clemson that scares me would be in ACC play – would be Miami on October the 21st. But I'm still not sold that Miami is where it needs to be with Mario Cristobal. So I think they have that. They get Florida State at home. I think Florida State's massively overrated. So I just think the road is easy. And I want to point this out. Everybody's caught with blinders that Georgia's won back-to-back national titles. But they haven't won back-to-back SEC titles. No. They didn't win it in 2021. And so I think people are seeing the back-to-back and just assuming automatically, oh, three-peat, at least repeat is SEC
undefeated. Yeah, you kind of think that. At least
Yeah.
I did bump into somebody over the weekend, and we were standing behind them in a line, and I didn't speak to them, but I turned to the guy, and this guy had a big Georgia tattoo on the back of his calf, and he had Tennessee stuff on, so I knew that he was a Tennessee fan. I turned to him, I said, "Do you think he got that tattoo when Drunken Ray Goff was the head coach at Georgia, or just recently?" He goes, "Man, I'm with you, brother, but don't go down that road. Don't go down that road." I was close, though, just for funsies, and I knew he would have my back, so I was excited about that. Man, you've got to try out the chill pills before I tell you the other school that you should be concerned about re-winning their conference or repeating as champions of their conference. It's crafttreats.com. It is great for your pet. Your pet will absolutely love crafttreats.com. And the chill pills will help with the digestive issues, and they'll also help with arthritis issues. They'll help with anxiety. It's all there. It's crafttreats.com. Use the promo code off the hook. That's off the hook. The chill pills are fantastic, but other craft treats available for your dog or pet and cat. And I think my wife's dragging me to get a dog today. So I can tell you, if it's a puppy, it's going to be loaded up with the chill pills. I can promise you that right now. Use the promo code off the hook. Off the hook, get 20% off. Please support our sponsors. We greatly appreciate it. It's why we're here each weekday at 10 a.m. So you got Clemson repeating as champion in your mind. You've got Georgia, in my mind, repeating as champion, because I think this is a transitional year for Alabama with a new quarterback and a new offensive system. I think those two, to me, feel like locks. Anybody else feel like locks in the big-time conferences?
Well, you're forgetting about that old Bayou school that could give Georgia some trouble. And there's a team they visited, Knoxville, in November, that could give them some trouble. So I'm not so sure they're a lock.
No. In my mind, they're a lock. Okay. So those two, and would I be surprised? No. I mean, Tennessee was a lock to just win 8 games last year in my mind, and hell, I was absolutely wrong on that. So I'm not a lock in my mind. Does not mean that I'm saying in December, come rip on me. But who else is a quote hooker lock to? Which they have to use sometimes when they find a lady of the night working. You have to use a hooker lock. That way, the patty, you just lock her to the nearest lamppost, and then a paddy wagon can come by. It's a hooker lock. The paddy wagon can come by and pick her up later. But who of those are in the conversation as far as conference champions most likely to repeat?
See, here's the thing. I don't think anybody else is. Okay, so Michigan's number 3. Look, I don't think Michigan's – if Ohio State doesn't win the Big Ten this year, you got to fire Ryan Day. I'm going to be honest. This is the most talented team Ohio State's ever had that they're about to have this year. This is they might be the most talented team in college football. Look at the number of projected first rounders for Ohio State next year. It's off the charts. So Ohio State, there's no way Michigan. Are you with me on this? Michigan is not. He has them at number 3. I got them at number 10. I think they're almost a lock to not win the Big Ten, Michigan.
Yeah, and I think that they've got issues there. I think at some point there is a residual from Jim Harbaugh looking for an NFL job. I think players start to question leadership. I think that stuff happens more than you think. I think it started to happen with Philip Fulmer in the mid to late 90s, to be real honest with you. But so I think Michigan's the type of program that can load up, win it 1 year, and be average for 2 or 3 years. But who else? Because I want to get to today's tough question.
Okay, so number 4, they have Utah. Again, I think almost a lock to not win it. If USC doesn't win it this year, then that's a big red flag for Lincoln Riley still being in the Pac-12. And then number 5, Tulane. So the reason Tulane actually wouldn't be higher on the list is because the team that's number 10 on here, Texas San Antonio, who plays Tennessee, by the way, they won the Conference USA last year, but they're in the American this year. And I've got Texas San Antonio as the best group of 5 team in college football this year. So Texas San Antonio, Tulane. Guys, that is the game of the year right there if they play each other. I don't know if they play each other, but and then Kansas State, number 6, with the Big 12. I don't think Kansas State's repeating. Do you?
No, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be the biggest Big 12 expert in the world. I would just be real frank with you. Rocky Top Tom says Georgia's a lock in the SEC. Again, simply too powerful in defense. Only lock on my conference. And yes, Caleb, if Ohio State doesn't beat Michigan to win the Big 10, it's over for Ryan Day. Whoa, you guys have some pretty big standards. I mean, if they just lose one game to Michigan, I'm not sure they're making a change in.
Dave, look at how loaded this Ohio State team is.
I know, but still, you're in the college football playoff just last year, and will probably be this year. It's hard to fire a coach doing that.
This Ohio State team is, I'm going here. If they don't win it, it's as egregious as the 97 Vols not beating Florida, which I thought was an egregious black mark on Fulmer's record. That 97 team was so talented, they had no business losing to Florida that year. That should have been the year they ended the streak, not 98. And I got to be honest, if Ohio State doesn't go undefeated in the regular season, with maybe a slip up here, they got to win the Big Ten. They're too loaded. This Ohio State team is one of the most talented teams I've ever seen in college football this year.
No. Here we go. So that leads us to today's tough question. And I can actually tell when we have a huge audience on all of our platforms, and we're off and running on a Monday. So I'm going to ask you to hit that like button and be sure that you subscribed and be sure that you have your notifications on, because it's practically football season for me. I'll go ahead and tell you, kids, when we get to SEC Media Days, I think you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm jazzed, and we're going to be from there. Man, this is football season. I don't care what you say. This is football season. When I get on ESPN.com and I see that the lead story is the selection of the WNBA All-Star Draft, to hell with that. I am just absolutely in football season. Here we go. Today's tough question. It's about the Dogs.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Yeah, so from now on, when somebody says, what do you like to listen to? What's your favorite podcast or show? And you say the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, just say, and they say, wow, why do you listen to that? That Dave Hooker guy, he's washed up, and I haven't heard of Caleb Calhoun yet. No, you have to say, because on their show, it's football season, by golly gee, and you can use other words. So is it a failure for Georgia if they don't win the SEC? Yay or nay, Caleb?
No, because they could still win the national championship without winning the SEC. The SEC is the one conference where you can do that.
No. The SEC still matters. It is a monster failure for Georgia if they do not win the SEC. You just rolled your eyes at me.
Do you consider the 2021 season a failure for Georgia?
Partial.
Oh, come on. You think Georgia...
Partial, I do. The SEC is, and if you're watching on the video platform on YouTube, I mean, it's this close. I got my fingers this close together. To me, winning the SEC, and I've always said this, is just this close to winning the entire national championship. I would rather, let's put it this way, I'd rather win 3 SEC championships than 1 national title. Is that crazy?
No,
because then you're knocking on the door on that 4th year.
I got a question for you. Would you rather let's do this? 90s through 2000s Braves. Would you rather be the Braves during that period or the Marlins? Braves won the division every year, but got 1 World Series title. Marlins made the playoff.
I'd rather be the Braves
over the Marlins with the 2 World Series titles.
Yes.
No. You take the peak championship is the most important thing. You take the ultimate championship. Sorry. You take it.
Everybody agrees with you so far. They're saying that's crazy, Dave. The SEC means something to me.
Do you think? Remember that 2004 series where the Red Sox came back legendary from the 3-0 deficit to the Yankees to win those?
I don't want to talk about that as a Yankees fan. I just don't.
Well, do you think the Red Sox were like, well, we didn't win the AL East, so it still was a failure? Do you think they thought that?
No, but I'll put it this way. I think beating the Yankees in the playoffs, they would look back at that as a special year, even if they didn't win the World Series. I do believe that.
Oh, they probably would. But I'm just saying you'd rather be the team that wins it all. You would. That's the most important thing. Utah made the playoffs 20 years in a row with Karl Malone and John Stockton. I think the Rockets are happier with their results when they made the playoffs twice and won it twice in the mid-90s.
Okay. All right. There was no Jordan there.